and Guidry goes, let's go look at something that took place 40 years ago. Who cares? Okay, that's political.
Welcome, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Bill Trezevant, and welcome to another edition of the Lawyer's Den. This week, by way of private vote amongst all the people that you love here on the Lawyer's Den, we have decided that we are going to explore our Bill of Rights. Now, tonight's discussion will center on the First Amendment, decisions that people get to make, what they can say, what they won't say, what they should be allowed to say, if saying anything at all. So, to begin, I want to bring in my erstwhile friends. Fernando, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Bill. How are you?
Good. Jeff, how are you? Nope, Jeff can't hear.
Need to unmute him.
Yeah, he'll get there. Adam?
I'm fantastic. Thanks, Bill.
And my, Guidry, young lady.
Good afternoon.
You're right. So, I wanted to begin, at least this evening, with the following. And I'm not quite sure who to call on first, but I'm not worried because I know all of you, and that is simply this. Tonight's discussion, the First Amendment. Who can speak? Who can't speak? Who gets censured after they do speak? And for this, I want to begin with Adam, please, from Georgia.
Well, for the audience, just by way of brief background, the First Amendment protects three basic rights: the right to speech, the right to freely exercise your religion, and the right to the freedom of the press. The Supreme Court, regarding speech, the Supreme Court has broadly construed speech to cover a number of verbal and nonverbal activities, such as in Citizens United versus FEC and McCutcheon versus FEC, when the court in two 5-4 decisions overturned Austin versus Michigan Chamber of Commerce, held that money was speech and can be used to gain unfair access to and influence in the political process. But the more important point is that the court in Snyder versus Phelps and in United States versus Stevens endorsed such a broad view of speech, okay, that it allows people in the United States today to say horribly vile, racist, sexist, homophobic things that have no social value, do not contribute to the marketplace of ideas or to diverse areas of thought, and simply exist to hurt people, to traumatize them, and to cause emotional distress. I think that's wrong. I think Snyder versus Phelps should be overturned, and I think Hustler magazine versus Falwell should be overturned. There's no place in a free society for speech that's trash and has no value.
Adam, we do have only a limited time on this show, but thank you for your opening remarks. Jeff, please, yours, and then Guidry, I'm coming to you, and Nick, I think somebody's going to have something to say about you being late. However, Jeff, and then Guidry, please. Jeff?
Well, our first president, the father of our country, George Washington, whose birthday we just celebrated and whose actual birthday is coming up next week, I think, the 22nd of February, said this: "If the freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter." Now, why do we care about this today? We don't care about speech because it's innocuous, because it's not powerful, because it doesn't ever do damage. We value it exactly because it's powerful. And that's why I disagree with everything Adam just said. We value speech because it matters, because it's powerful, because it moves people to do stuff. And as a free society, we have to have a large marketplace of ideas. The cure to hate speech is love speech. It's more speech, not less. The cure to the racist speech is speech against racism. And the only way we're ever going to maintain a free society is if people are free to say what they think, and we trust the majority to think correctly. So
Okay.
I and George Washington are for free speech, even if it's unpopular.
Okay, Guidry, because Nick, I'm still coming to you next, and Fernando, you're going to round out this table. But Guidry, please.
Well, when it comes to the freedom of speech, I find myself somewhere in the middle. I think it is very important to know that up until Brandenburg Standard, freedom of speech was manipulated based on a fear of war, and it was limited to an extensive level. However, our more recent precedent in Supreme Court demonstrates that freedom of speech is more valued by our society than the content of the speech, meaning that argument and discourse is very relevant and actually wanted in order to grow and move forward. And therefore, I am very pro freedom of speech and trying to understand it and move with it forward.
Nick.
Yeah,
No, Nick. I want you to understand, please, because this is just a personal point of order for me. You really messed up our introduction because you weren't here to introduce everybody else. But fine.
Looking for the link, but that's another story. The link.
Well, no, then fine. Then that's my fault. I apologize.
Okay.
So, Nick, welcome and good evening. Nick, you're
There's some background noise.
got it.
Somebody. No, I still hear it reverbing. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Even though I hear it twice. Okay, I don't know why I'm hearing it twice. But I love listening to Adam talk about freedom of speech. I mean, there's nobody who presents a more elegant argument, cites constitutional issues, has it rounded out, and there's nobody else on this panel, I believe, that's more elegantly spoken than Professor Adam Lamparero, who's also 100% wrong, which is not unusual for Adam. In other words, he'll cite everything. He'll sound eloquent. We've got to have all this. We've got to get rid of all this bad speech. Blah 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 blah. Like the typical theoretician, person who's sitting on high professor would do, but doesn't really comport with any form of reality that exists in the United States, or frankly anywhere around the world, since people listen to us around the world. So we have freedom of speech for a reason. It's because we don't want thought police, like he likes to be, telling us what we can think and what we can say. That's the reason the United States was founded on this principle of freedom of speech, and we have that in the First Amendment. Now, in this utopian false world, which he lives in, everybody's going to be nice and hunky-dory to each other, and Lord forbid if somebody says something against someone, because, then hellfire damnation and criminal procedures will take place. So like I said, he elegantly spoke it, which he always does, 100% wrong, which is not unusual.
Bill, may I comment briefly?
Wait. I think Fernando's up now, Bill. You're the den master. Point of procedure, Bill. Fernando's up. This guy gets to be quiet and listen to what was just said and take it in, Adam. Take it in. Let's listen to Fernando.
Fernando, that's you. So, Fernando, please.
Yeah, Adam's out of his mind. And what gets me is that individuals such as Adam always think that they're the ones that are going to be the individuals to make the decisions as to what speech will be allowed and what speech will not be allowed. And it's going to be quite the contrary. He's going to be the first one that they're going to silence, and they're going to put in a corner and tell to shut up. And the fact is that autocratic nations and dictatorships, the first thing that they do is that they take away individuals' ability to speak. Whether it is good speech, bad speech, guess what? That's not up to us to decide. Everybody has a different tolerance. And if you don't like what you hear, put your fingers in your ear and walk away. I'd rather have individuals speak and say all the nasty things so that I know exactly who you are and who I'm confronting and how I have to respond in kind. I'm not interested in somebody smiling to my face and then turning around and behind my back saying saying whatever they're going to say. I'd rather it be said to my face. And in a society that has free speech, they're going to say it to my face. And I prefer that. I prefer you come up to me and say X, Y, and Z. Call me whatever racial epithets you want to call me. And that's fine. I can take it, or all the good stuff that comes along with it, because I'm going to respond in kind. I'm not going to shy away. And the more you keep, hold on, the more you keep people silenced, the more trouble you have, because that's how you lead to all these Proud Boys and all this other nonsense. Because what they do is that they go underground. And when they're underground, you have no idea what they're doing. So I'd rather have them out in the open so we can confront them.
Okay, well, now that we're all out in the open, I mean, don't mind me. You know, I'm not quite sure which way to turn on this one. I was hoping that maybe we would not personally attack so soon, but so be it. Deidre, please.
Okay, so I'm joining Adam here. I started with the pressure and love, like pressure, loving and really admiring and trying to preserve freedom of the speech. I apologize for being all over the place. I just got back after catching a storm outside here in Miami. But I want to agree with Adam on one point. I think that the point that we are missing here is that the situation is different. And until very recently, the situation, the reality has changed. Meaning that prior to, let's say, 1970s, we had a huge gatekeeper. Family would have 4 or 5 TV stations that would control the information that is being given to the people, that would control, or let's say would provide a certain level of freedom of the speech. That is okay. That is okay for the community, for the society. Right now, every single person has a megaphone. I think that's a pretty well-known phrase expressed by one of the panelists. And it's true. And that megaphone and that ability to really tell and say anything they want, manipulate the knowledge and manipulate the speech, including hatred speech, creates a precedent of possible danger. And right now, gentlemen, there is a lot of incidents that demonstrate that there is correlation between a freedom of the speech, particularly online, exercised by all those different platforms, and the harm that is suffered in reality in the real world. And now the question comes, how we need to control it, how we need to not control it, how we need to address it, while also respecting this precedent expressed by the Constitution of valuing in our society of valuing of freedom of speech. And there, I think that Adam has a good point.
Okay, Adam. Adam, you know, no, Adam, I want to be clear about this for our audience, if you don't mind. May I? Okay, Adam, you have been a proponent on this program for limiting speech. Your turn, Adam.
That is 100% correct, and I disagree with Jeff. I'll tell you why. I am all for the dissemination of unpopular, distasteful, and offensive ideas. That creates a marketplace of ideas, and that's essential to liberty. What I'm not for is speech that attacks, degrades, demeans, and devalues individuals. In Snyder versus Phelps, the Westboro Baptist Church stood outside of a funeral of a deceased Iraq War veteran with a sign that said, "God hates fags." Okay? Now, that to me is wrong. In United States versus Stevens, the Supreme Court held that the First Amendment protected crush videos, which depicted women with 6-inch heels digging them into the eyes of kittens and torturing them and killing them. This speech has no value. It demeans people. It causes emotional distress. In Hustler magazine versus Falwell, the Supreme Court held that the First Amendment protected a depiction of the Reverend Jerry Falwell having sex with his mother in an outhouse. This speech is trash. This speech is garbage. This speech harms, and it's wrong, and I don't support it. I also don't support people using the N-word. I don't support them denying that the Holocaust existed. I don't support the KKK walking down Main Street. I do support unpopular ideas, like in Cohen versus California, when the court held that a person could wear a shirt that said, "Fuck the draft." But that is communicating unpopular ideas. I don't think the First Amendment should protect speech that attacks people, degrades them, and devalues them. And that was the case in Hustler. That was the case in Snyder. That was the case in Stevens. And I stand by that 100%.
Okay, Nick or Jeff, which one do you guys want to? Nick, do you want to take this first, and then Jeff, come to you. So Nick, please.
Oh well, I think he specifically addressed Jeff, so maybe Jeff should take on Adam first, and then I'll just mop him up when Jeff finishes.
Well, the only thing I'd like to say, guys, is do you want to live in a decent society or not?
Adam, you can't.
Sure, we can all move to mainland China. They don't have freedom of speech there. Adam. I mean,
You can still have freedom of speech without this garbage in our society.
Well, no, hang on.
Or you can move to Cuba or Venezuela.
I don't believe in racist crap and that's not speech. That's garbage.
Jeff, please.
All right. Well, a couple of important points. First of all, Adam just implicitly called for the Supreme Court to overturn Brandenburg versus Ohio. That in that case, Brandenburg was a leader in the Ku Klux Klan. He marched down Main Street, and the Supreme Court found that they had a right to do that. That unpopular and even very offensive speech was still speech and should be allowed into the public square. And we trust other people speaking to counteract the influence of any toxic or negative speech. Secondly, I want to expand on a theme that Fernando hit on. I'm amazed that Fernando and I actually agree on something here, but James Madison, the author of the First Amendment, said, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. Now, we have to stipulate that anyone who runs the government, anybody in a position of power, is going to be a fallible human being. And Fernando is exactly right. If you go through the Bill of Rights, every single element in the Bill of Rights is something a dictator would try to take away if they're trying to establish absolute power. Due process of law, trial by jury, dictator wants to serve as judge, jury, and executioner. Take them out and shoot them. Freedom of religion. They don't want you to be loyal to anybody but the state. So a church is a threat to a dictator's power. Second Amendment, they want to take all the guns and gather them up so that they can dominate without fear of resistance. Go down the list of all the rights in the Bill of Rights, and I can tell you why a dictator would not want people to have that right. And the freedom of speech is in the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, right to peaceably assemble, and freedom of the press. Those are put first for a reason, because that's what allows unpopular ideas and popular movements to be created. And who do you want to put in charge of the ministry of truth? Adam's idea is Orwellian. He believes that it would be a virtuous person deciding what ideas are garbage and what ideas are not.
That is not true. That is a mischaracterization.
It will be a fallible human being. It will not be an angel. If you could have an angel do it, like Madison talked about, fine. But it's going to be fallible human beings making the decision about what other people can say. I don't want that. Not in America. That's a Soviet.
Well, I want to be clear for the audience. I'm not doing that right now. I just want to make sure that Nick, your thoughts, please.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we clearly have our thought police sitting right next to me, and so telling me what I can say and what I can think. If not, I guess Mr. Lamparero is going to take me and put me in jail, like we do with 2 million other people, because I don't think the way he wants me to think. I don't say the things he wants me to say, and I don't believe the things he wants me. If I want to say I don't believe the Holocaust ever existed, I have the right to say it. I am sorry, and I've seen the arguments.
You shouldn't.
Oh, well, that's in your opinion, counselor.
And Germany's opinion, too.
Okay, well, Germany's opinion, too. But in the United States, you have the right to think the way you think. You can bring cogent arguments to say, well, concentration camps and stuff like that have existed for centuries, blah, 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 blah. So the thing is, in the United States of America, where we happen to live, not in China or Russia, we have the right to think things, even though that you, the thought police, disagree with it. You have the right to say it. I think it was Patrick Henry, and before that Voltaire, said, I may disagree with you and what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. In Adam's world, if there's such a world, that part doesn't exist. I disagree with what you think, and you will die if you say it. I certainly totally disagree with you, even though you speak very eloquently.
Well, you're mischaracterizing my position.
Well, who's going to be the thought police? What are you going to do, Adam?
I'm not advocating for thought police. What I just said to you and Jeff was that I support unpopular and offensive ideas. What I don't support are attacks on individuals. And there's a case from 1964 called Miller versus California. in which the court held that obscenity was not protected by the First Amendment, and it defined obscenity as having no literary, scientific, or artistic value, and that appealed to the prurient sexual interest. My argument is that some speech can be obscene, having no literary, scientific, or artistic value, even if it doesn't have a sexual component. I think it's wrong for individuals to target private persons with vicious, zero-value speech that is designed to and does cause emotional harm. Tell your argument to the transgender person who jumped off the roof at Rutgers after he was relentlessly bullied, or the people who survived the Holocaust who have to hear that there was no Holocaust, or African Americans who have to have the N-word hurled at them. There is no value in this. I completely disagree with Jeff, and I also reject the implications of what you guys say. It's just that I'm not the thought police. I'm trying to protect people from harm that occurs from speech that has no value whatsoever and only causes harm.
Okay, Deidre, please.
Okay, so for me, I think the danger is for the reasoning that Adam is giving here, sharing with us here, is that it's very difficult to define or to box the thought police. What is an acceptable speech? At what point something becomes bullying? At what point something becomes beyond offensive? And I think that here, especially being raised or grown in United States, I think that sentiment is not very common. Freedom of the speech, that it was also expressed by the late Justices Antonin Scalia, is more important than the context of the speech. But here I would like to circle back to the top of our argument about Brandenburg. I think that here it's a different prong that I would like to take our discussion to. That's far beyond the offensive speech. I'm talking about the incitement. I'm talking about those two prongs that were introduced by this test, imminency and probability. And I'm a very big supporter of that test. I love that test. I think it should be played with. I think it should be applied to our society. But I think that we should talk more about not offensive, but at this point about harmful conduct. And why I like Brandenburg is that it allowed us as society to focus on context and also on intent, not forgetting the surroundings. And here, Adam, I think it's very important to see that what would be the effects on the surroundings. And my point is that the freedom of the speech cannot be limited to the offensive speech. If someone does not believe that genocide existed, that kind of line of thinking would cause maybe someone some suffering or some mental anguish based on their experience. However, it could lead to the argument, it could lead to the conversation or discourse that this society supports. And therefore, by itself, this line of thinking, in my opinion, would not be sufficient to limit the freedom of the speech by rendering it more than offensive.
But you're mischaracterizing my argument again.
So maybe I misunderstood it. Because
I don't think you misunderstood.
No, someone who says that they do not believe in a genocide, or you're against someone using N-word, whereas
you're mischaracterizing the argument. I'm not arguing against offensive speech. That should always be tolerated. I'm saying that there should be a four-part test. Speech that is deliberately targeted at a private individual, that causes severe emotional distress, that has no literary, scientific, artistic value whatsoever, should be actionable in civil court for damages. I would overturn Hustler because I do not believe that. I believe that Miller versus California was correct in defining obscenity, but I wouldn't require a sexual component. Why? Because yes, we need a robust marketplace of ideas, and we need to tolerate offensive and horrible speech, but not speech that has zero value, that's intended to hurt people, that does cause severe distress, and that has no value. And that is the case with speech such as that which devalues people and not ideas, such as transphobic speech, homophobic speech, racist speech, that devalues people and doesn't contribute an ounce to the marketplace of ideas. Cohen versus California was rightly decided. Hustler was not, and Snyder was not, and I'd overrule both.
Okay. No. Thank you, Adam. Jeff, because you began with George Washington, and please.
Well, the Supreme Court's definition of obscenity, as I understand it, includes an element that says a thing must be completely devoid of scientific, political, educational, or social value. I would construe that much more narrowly than Adam would. I believe there are some conduct which is not really speech in any way, that it doesn't communicate any ideas. Adam is talking about ideas that, may be offensive to him and certainly are offensive to me, but which are nonetheless debatable and which people can disagree about. And, what does it, well, I'm not going to describe obscene speech on this program, but it has no element of any idea that is being communicated at all. And so I think in a large sense, the obscenity definition includes things that aren't really speech at all. Is someone protesting outside the funeral of an Iraq war veteran speech? Is it communicating an idea? Well, yeah, it's an offensive idea to Adam. It's offensive to me. But just because it's offensive to me does not mean I would ban it. And again, the problem with saying we're going to allow a broad range of ideas except stuff that is just, quote, pure garbage, is we need a human being to decide what is pure garbage and what's not. And that is subject to abuse. And I want to.
I just gave you a 4-part test.
Adam, hang on. And Jeff, I appreciate that. What I'd like to do right now, Fernando, because you come from a city of over 8 million people, and even the cab drivers have an opinion. So, correct. So, what are your thoughts? I want to hear from you as you represent 8 million people.
I don't know if I represent 8 million people, but I'll give it my best shot. In all honesty, Adam's test sounds like complete nonsense. It sounds vague, overbroad, and there's no way to figure out what is going to be garbage and what isn't. And he keeps talking of no value, no value. Well, it's of no value to you specifically. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have value to someone else. And those people that were protesting outside of the funeral of the Iraqi Marine, yeah, it's terrible. It's horrible. I don't agree with it. But guess what? There's an entire congregation that agrees with it and finds value in what they were saying. So right there, your test is starting to fall apart. In terms of the KKK walking down the middle of the street, they have every right to march and protest as long as they aren't shooting anybody, the same way that someone has the right to protest for civil rights. And the ACLU has defended both the KKK and the people that have marched for civil rights, because they're one and the same. They're just on opposite sides of the spectrum. And that does not mean that because you don't like the KKK and you don't like what they stand for, that they don't have a right to picket and protest and march and say whatever nonsense they want to say. Under your system and your 4-part test, what the KKK does is that they retrench, they go underground, and now they become more of a problem. Because now you have no idea who those people are. Because now they're spreading to your face, they're smiling, saying, hey, yeah, you're great, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, in their house, they're planning to blow up buildings. They're planning to drag and harass and kill individuals and burn down their houses, which under your system, you're pushing people underground. And our founding fathers were lawyers. There's a reason why they numbered the amendments the way they did, from the most important to the least important.
They were also criminals, but
and under your reasoning,
in your opinion, they were criminal. In my opinion, they were great.
And under your reasoning, you would allow a video of a woman sticking her 6-inch heel into the eye of a kitten and torturing and mutilating it to be protected by the First Amendment, and that is
I would,
fact.
but guess what?
My test is not designed
by the same token,
to suppress
that woman
ideas.
is going to end up getting arrested under criminal charges.
I didn't interrupt you, did I?
Because you keep bringing up the stupid cat.
No, Jeff.
I brought up Cohen. I brought up Miller. I brought up Stevens. I brought up Snyder. I brought up Citizens United.
Yeah, Miller was right, and the Hustler case was right.
And my test is based off Miller, just without the sexual component. It's called non-sexual obscenity.
A cartoon of Jerry Falwell and his mom is political satire.
Nick.
And you would allow that? I wouldn't.
Okay,
absolutely.
Adam, right. I'm going to allow it. Just not just yet. Nick, seriously, because Nick, you've been kind of quiet here, and then I got to go to you, Jeff. Please, and Gidry, don't think that I'm not forgetting about you, because you, remember, are my heart and soul. So, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, history will show that Adam's whole theory is bogus. because the thing is, all the words he says, oh, it's offensive, stuff like that, is used every day. He just doesn't play basketball. I mean, if he goes out like me and we play basketball, it's used every day, dude. I mean, but in your opinion, no, it's offensive. We've got to control that speech. You're going to put all my basketball players in jail because they use the word? I mean, give me a break.
No,
That's the problem we have in this country is we have too many elitists that sit on top of universities who are telling us how to think and what to say and what we do.
About a private student
wait, sir, I did not interrupt you. You don't get to interrupt me. We made that arrangement, right? Doesn't master. Okay, so the thing is, I see people all over the world coming to America, and I go, why do you want to leave beautiful China and come to America? Because why would you want to leave a place that is regulated, it's clean, it's Adam's idea of utopia. People don't say bad things against each other because they go to jail. It's because she wants her freedom, something that we have here, that if you want it the other way, Adam, pack up your bags, go to Singapore, go to Shanghai, hang out there, and everything will be ipsy-pipsy. You can't say anything bad to anybody because they'll put you in the Chinese gulag.
Do you think depictions of child pornography should be protected by the First Amendment?
No, Adam, please, I beg your forgiveness, if you don't mind me.
I'm sorry.
No. I beg your forgiveness. I apologize. Jeff, please. Mute, Jeff.
Oh, you're on mute, Jeff.
Got it.
All right. So looking at the example that Adam keeps talking about with kittens, I'd like to say something a little more emphatically than Fernando did a minute ago. Draw a cartoon of a kitten with somebody pushing high heels through its eye. It's disgusting. I wouldn't watch it. I don't want to watch it. But the fact that something is done on camera and put on YouTube and turned into speech doesn't immunize it from criminal prosecution. Maybe publicizing something itself is protected, but the actual act of torturing an animal is inhumane and it's against the law. I have no problem with that. And you can't make it legal by dressing it up and calling it speech. That's fine. But if you draw a cartoon and you're not really hurting a kitten, yeah, I mean, go ahead and do it. Like I said, I don't want to watch it, but somebody will watch it, I guess. And I do consider that protected speech. The touchstone for me is, are you actually hurting somebody? And I don't just mean emotionally hurting somebody. Speech hurts people. I get that. It hurts people emotionally, but in a free society, if we want to maintain freedom, we got to put up with an awful lot of opinions we don't agree with, and go on social media and you'll hear everything under the sun. One final thought. I heard the highest ranking Soviet official that ever defected to the West speak when I was just a kid, and it made a big impression on me. But his name was Arkady Shevchenko, and he was their ambassador to the United Nations. And he talked about all of the lies that they were fed about the West, about the United States, and so on, while he was growing up in the Soviet Union, about how much worse it was over here than over there. And he also talked about how he was curious one night, and he and some friends visited midnight mass and on Christmas Eve, and he was called in by the KGB at school the next time he was in school, and they pulled him out of class and interrogated him about, what do you want to go to church for? You're a young man, you have a bright future, you don't want to be going near that, because religion was disfavored in the Soviet Union. Now, I know Adam's not suggesting that we punish people for going to church, but that is where ultimately this business of anything that's pure garbage should be suppressed leads us, because you know what? KGB thought going to church was pure garbage.
That's not what I said.
That religion is the opiate of the masses and pure garbage.
Can I speak a little bit about the cats?
Well,
I have a
Or a depiction of child porn. How about a drawing of child pornography?
We'll get there, but let's start with the cat.
Adam, I love you. I want you to understand I love you. Nick, yes, but I got to get Adrian And please, so Nick, yes, what do you have to say? And then
well, I'll just Adam a little bit about those cats that somebody poked their eyes out, destroyed them, ripped their lungs out. I don't even care because cats, and this is a personal thing, I'm deathly allergic to. Twice I've gone to the hospital because all I have to do is have a cat in my presence. I'm that allergic to them. So in your opinion, oh, cats, we worship the cats. How can you possibly show a picture of a cat being mutilated? In my opinion, cats are so dangerous to me that if somebody said, if I went over to Guidry's house, first thing I asked, do you have a cat or have ever had a cat in your house? If the answer is yes, I never go to that house because if I just walk in the house, I'm bang like that. My lungs collapse and I'm in the hospital. And if you said kill, mutilate all the cats, I'm happy with it. You know, because the thing is, they kill me. Why would it be anything else? So that's my argument.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, Guidry,
move on.
do you like cats or dogs? Or where are we on this idea of free speech right now? And do you have a cat or a dog? Because I'm really concerned about Nick. He is.
I will not go to
my co-host.
Okay. Well, I'm a dog person, but I'm also allergic to the cats. However, I think that mutilating cats has nothing to do with the freedom of the speech. I think that
read USV Stevens.
Maybe Nick, you need to do some yoga and Pilates to relax and kind of pass that subject in your life. But when it comes to the point about Soviet Union, I agree with Jeff. I grew up in Soviet Union. We definitely looked up to United States as the country of free everything, including the freedom of mind, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And I value that a lot. When it comes to, right now listening to what Adam was saying, Fernando, Jeff, I started thinking, okay, maybe we need to take a step back and to see why we are having this conversation of really nobody wants to, it's so difficult to let go this freedom of speech that we finally have here. And I think we need to go back to the history, the First World War, the Red Scare that was mentioned by Jeff. The speech was manipulated strictly by all the judicial institutions and the government on the pretenses of the fear and danger of the war. And it took us a while. It took us a while prior even to that to getting to where we are now. And therefore, I think there is this fear, and also knowing that there is no other country in the world that values freedom of speech to the point that United States does, that really makes us feel at ease to even trying to consider censoring certain speech. As I agree with Adam, it's completely cruel and incomprehensible what some kind of content could be exposed to us. However, what would be the cost of us limiting that speech, and what would be the spillover effect of that?
I can tell you. If you
go right ahead, it's your turn.
Okay, I want to just speak to the audience briefly. Everybody on this panel is deliberately mischaracterizing what I'm saying. I did not once say that the government should be in charge of regulating speech. So they go down this parade of horribles about how we're going to become like the Soviet Union, and I'm the thought police, and it's so bogus and so absurd. All I'm saying is that there's a category of speech that when directed specifically at private individuals that has no literary or artistic value as enunciated in Miller, and that causes severe emotional distress, it'd be a very narrow category. That should allow private individuals to sue in civil court for the intentional infliction of emotional distress. That's all I'm saying. So this argument about I'm going to be like Russia, the government censoring speech, is completely missing the point. It's misleading. It's wrong, and it doesn't even address the issue that I'm talking about. I would overturn Hustler. I think you should have a suit. If somebody publishes a picture of you having a depiction of you having sex with your mother, I think that's wrong. I think if you have a depiction of someone torturing and mutilating a cat, that's wrong. Or having sex with an underage child, I think that's wrong. Okay. It doesn't promote ideas. It attacks people.
Okay, Fernando, and then I'm coming back to you, Nick. Fernando, please.
Yes, sir.
Have you been listening to this?
Yeah, I have. So 2 points. One, Adam brings up the point that there should be a narrow category for you to sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Guess what? That tort already exists. And guess what? It's almost impossible to prove because you cannot prove a person's mental state. You have to show a physical, at least in New York State, you have to show a physical manifestation of the mental torture or the mental distress that you underwent to even get up to the point of showing that you have had intentional emotional distress. As a matter of fact, Cardozo, and I forgot the name of the case, said when you live in New York City, a tort of intentional infliction of emotional distress doesn't exist. In New York City, New York State, people say what they have to say. You're going to have thick skin if you're riding the subway and running around. We already have thought police that have existed for a while now. They're known as school boards, right? In the 80s, a big thing was burning books. Mark Twain's book is horrible. This person's book is terrible. That other book is horrible. So now what do we have? We have a whole bunch of kids being educated in certain parts of the country that don't read Twain, that don't read a lot of the classics, who are learning that creationism is the standard, not evolution. And that's what this whole process kind of leads to. This has been going on for a while. It didn't just start today, but we've chipped away at it in different areas by creating school boards and community boards. And let's look at the curriculum. And, oh, we can't teach that in public school because this person's going to get offended. We can't teach that book because I don't like what it says. We can't teach this form of science because I don't think that's science because my Bible says X, Y, and Z. So
okay. No. I hear you. Nick, I need you, and then Jeff, I'm coming to you. Nick, please.
Yeah, Bill. This show is making me really, really sick, and I'll tell you why it's making me sick. Okay, I'm starting to agree with Fernando, and I'm having a real serious problem here. And and then I might start saying things to him that I really shouldn't say, and then all of a sudden we're going to go off the air. No, well, I'll never do that. I mean, come on, I can only go so low, and that's below any possible bar that we could establish. But
I don't own a cat.
He doesn't own a cat. Okay, so now he's being pretty cool.
All right, just make a joke out of it. Make a joke. Okay, go ahead.
No joke about going to the hospital because of cats, and frankly, it's not only that. Fish. I hate to say it, you're basically animals. We eat fish. We eat cows. I mean, you might find it offensive because you saw cows in a slaughterhouse. I mean, Lord forbid. Do you know they actually slaughter cows? Oh, I thought hamburger was just something handed to me in McDonald's. I mean, when is this thing going to stop? And it won't. And so this is the reason why we have freedom of speech. Guidry wanted to come to the United States. Her sole reason, she just had to get out of that Soviet Union where they controlled her thoughts, her minds, her actions, and she came here to the land of freedom. And I don't see her packing her bags and going back. She seems to like it here, buddy. Okay, but there's plenty of opportunity around the world. Remember, IBM TV goes around the world, except in certain places. We have trouble in Russia and China. Why? Because they want to control the thoughts. Okay, that's the reason why. So if you want to go where the thoughts are controlled and everybody does according to their leader, we got two great countries. They're great countries.
And you mischaracterized my argument again. Under your logic, you would permit the depiction of a 10-year-old boy giving oral sex to an older man just because it's a depiction. It's protected by the First Amendment. It's trash. It's garbage. It's harmful. It contributes nothing to the marketplace of ideas. And I stand by that. I don't have the same robust view of the First Amendment.
You say if somebody looked at it because it gets flashed on their screen, they go to jail. No, I don't agree with that.
No, I'd say if the depiction was of me and I saw that in public, I'd have a civil suit for IED.
You do. You go talk to Fernando. It's called intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Don't charge me too much, Fernando.
Just a third of whatever we win, which is probably going to be zero.
Okay, no. Nick, I appreciate that. Adam, I appreciate that. Fernando, I appreciate that. For our audience, I want you to know that this is what they call, an LLM death match. Adam has his LLM. Nick has his LLM. It's only, Jeff has his too. So does
Guidry. Okay.
I don't think I forgot about her. I mean, seriously, I got that part. My hope here is simply this, and I want to do this in quick order, if I may. With your guys' vote. Jeff, please, because I know where you're coming from, and that is more free speech, love speech, good, bad, or indifferent. I know that's where you're coming from. And so I hope that you might be able to, as Nick pointed out, tell our worldwide audience why you have to really embrace it. You have to hug it. You have to, even when it is distasteful. Jeff? Hang on.
His speech has been muted by the
No.
microphone.
No, that's Jeff.
Can you hear me?
Now
Yeah.
we can. Yeah, freedom of speech has now taken place. Thank you.
My freedom of speech has been restored.
Yes.
So the idea that we censor that which is pure garbage, as Adam put it, pure garbage is in the eye of the beholder. And in his argument that we should create a tort for speech offenses of some kind, in my mind, first of all, free speech is protected against government interference. So we're not really talking about all of these examples he gave of Hustler and whatever else. We're talking, in his case, about a private dispute between two private individuals. But in terms of government censoring speech, you have to ultimately, whether it's a judge or some government official at the Ministry of Truth, you have to have somebody who's willing to decide what is pure garbage and willing to bring a case and prosecute you for engaging in it. And in the case of the Soviet Union, they thought that going to church or speaking in church on the subject of religion was pure garbage because the state religion was atheism. Now, I know Adam's not advocating for that, but the problem is, as Fernando said, that's in the eye of the beholder, and probably the person that's going to be in charge of that in Adam's perfect world is going to be somebody who wants to shut him up and who thinks that his ideas are pure garbage. And
Okay.
so that's my thought on this is men aren't angels. We don't have angels to rule over us.
All right, Adam, please.
Well, in Miller versus California, Jeff, the Supreme Court held that certain speech is obscene and not protected by the First Amendment. And what did the court say? We know it when we see it. And indeed, they were correct. I'm simply saying that there's a narrow category of speech that may not have a sexual component, but is nonetheless obscene under Miller. And I'm not advocating for censorship. I'm not advocating for any federal statute banning any words or giving the government any power. I'm advocating giving citizens power when they are subject to severe emotional harm by speech that is targeted at them, has no artistic or scientific value, and causes real emotional harm. And make no mistake, speech also causes physical harm. It causes mental health issues. Speech has metabolic consequences, and neuroscience proves that. Okay? So I don't agree with you. I think, and there's no pure garbage standard that I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for speech that is, go ahead.
No. I want to say thank you because that's really important. And Nick, no, this time, Nick, I'm going to Guidry first because you've had your say, and I know that she's been patient. Please, Guidry, you've heard them arguing. Please.
I love listening to them argue. Makes me think more. But no, and Adam does have a sense. I do agree with Adam to a certain extent. I will look more into the danger and intent. But yeah, I would add it. I think that there are certain instances or certain speech or certain expression that should be monitored. I would put that though upon the society. I definitely do not agree that government should monitor it to the extent we are talking about. But I do believe in social engineering. And I think that if there is intent that meets the damage that Adam mentioned, that speech has such an effect, and I think we are noticing and knowing more about it, learning more about it, and seeing, especially with all those different platforms and the reach to so many different individuals, I think that there is some sense, and I think there could be, I think it's going to happen to a certain extent. It's just not so broad and, yeah, too specific.
Okay, Nick, and then Fernando, I'm coming to you right
Yeah. But see, for my esteemed colleague, Fernando has already shown Adam the light if he ever wants to go into it. He said, if you actually do get that sick because somebody's abusing you verbally, it rises to this tort, which all lawyers know, intentional infliction of emotional distress. But if not, you have the right to say it. And the Miller test, I hate that case. We know it when we'll see it. That is typical lawyer, arrogant, elitist bunk. It's something that can't be calculated. It's the reason why Shakespeare said, kill all the lawyers, because come on, that was the most arrogant statement I've ever heard. Well, we will know it when we see it. Come on, that's arrogant. It's disgusting. It's speech that should be eliminated. And you're saying it's a Miller test. I think it's a horrible test. It should be kicked out the door.
I'm saying that depictions of children giving oral sex to older men should be banned.
Okay, counselor, you need to have objective standards, not this.
I do have one.
See it.
Well, no. Adam, here in the lawyer's den, I have an objective standard, and that is, at least according to my test right now, I need to hear from Fernando Leal. Fernando, from the great city of New York, city where if you are thin-skinned,
if you're thin-skinned, you're going to have to move out. Because under Adam's test, everybody's getting sued. So the courts will be even more overwhelmed than what they are right now. I disagree with Nick's characterization of kill all the lawyers. If we delve deeper into that statement in the book, it was said because the king wanted to get rid of the lawyers because the lawyers were thwarting his objectives to suppress the people. So that's why they wanted to kill them, because we are the vanguard of society. Always have, always will be. As for these cat videos, a lot of these cat videos that you're seeing of tortured animals, most of them don't happen inside of the United States. They're videos from outside of the United States that through social media get circulated. Here in the US, the ones that have taken place here in the US have led to arrests by the ASPCA. The other thing is that Adam keeps saying no government to control thought and speech, but he wants to file lawsuits. Last time I checked, the courts were a branch of the government, so you're getting the government involved. They're going to come up with case law, which eventually is going to get codified. So some way, somehow, you're going to end up with the government being involved. The other thing, you also have all these neuroscience tests that you want to talk about. A lot of them may not be admissible in court if they don't meet the Dow test, the Dauber test. Because a lot of them are in their infancy, and a lot of them just won't make it in because they haven't been tested scientifically.
Okay. Well, first, I just got to give out some quick awards. Fernando, thank you for the CAT test, and thank you for making sure that the world knows that lawyers are at the vanguard. Because I do want to just make this small observation. We did have one of our own who appeared via Zoom in a court hearing as a cat. And right. That he was not a cat. So Fernando, Adam, cat, Fernando, vanguard, love it all. Now, this is what we do have to do, though, if you don't mind. We're going to have to kind of turn our attention to begin to kind of wrap this up. And what I want to do is simply this. Jeff, when you have a chance, do you think that you might share some of your thoughts moving forward as we begin to conclude? And then for the rest of the panel, I'm going around the horn. So, Jeff, you're first, please.
Well, as Adam knows, child pornography is already illegal. In a very narrow sense, I support that restriction, and for good reason. For the rest of this stuff that he's talking about, he said he's not in favor of eliminating words or suppressing words, but the words that he keeps quoting, God hates fags, I don't like that message. It's offensive to me, but those are words, and it is a message, and it is a powerful message for the people that are sharing it. Now, I think the answer to hate speech is not to suppress it. It is love speech. The answer to offensive ideas such as Holocaust denial is speech bolstering the case that the Holocaust happened, showing the pictures of the people who liberated those death camps. And I think the solution 99.9% of the time is not less speech, it's more speech. Now, if you want to talk about somebody coming on YouTube and explaining how to make a nuclear bomb in your basement, I might argue for suppression of that. But very, very limited amount of time. Very minimal restrictions. I think the vast universe of speech, the answer is more speech, not less.
Okay. Guidry, please. Adam, Nick, trust me, I'm coming to you. But Adam, I think you need more time to make those, because after all, you are in charge of a moot court group that has to make arguments. I want your argument to be really, really good. So, Guidry, please.
Adam, no pressure at all.
No.
Nick, I love your shades. I can see that our argument is so bright that you really have to put an outside help to handle it. But my point would be, I see where Adam is coming from. I definitely see that. I think that the reality of it is that we could interrogate the freedom of the speech for as long as we could, and we will. It's a never-ending subject. It's going to be always contested subject, and there is reason for that. However, I would go back to what we have talked before and saying that in Brandenburg, the standard of the danger was changed from hypothetical danger, meaning that what if judge could see that the language could incite or create some danger, and then there would be, or some threat or some harm, specific harm, and then there would be accountability, whereas to the actual danger. So where I want to go with it is that we really need to look at the cold facts and cold words and what it could create and what it could invoke. Offensive words are not sufficiently enough to be limited. However, some offensive words, especially in current environment, in current fabric of the United States, could lead to a harm where I could see that we could start limiting certain words, but very, very, very limited instances.
Okay, well, so Adam, you're still making notes. I see you, even though you don't know it yet. Nick, I'm coming to you first because I got to give it up to the shades. I really would like.
Well, Guidry is really sweet. She said that, and then she goes, I see where Adam is coming from. And all I could think of is the new space program that's being developed in Georgia, because there's people like Adam that are in outer space. I mean, that's just obvious. The guy is flying in outer space somewhere. So, he lives in that little cubby hole in Georgia, and all the Georgians think the same, that life should be la-di-da. And then you go to New York, and I lived in New York. Adam went to school in New York, but apparently he didn't get it. Okay, because he was only there for a year for his master's. NYU is a good school and all that other stuff, but he obviously didn't get it. And so what they did is they bounced his little rear out and sent him to the middle of Georgia, where he's safe and wonderful, and he can speak on his high horse all over the world on the IBM TV network. Now, with that being said, like I said, Guidry's really nice. He sees where Adam's coming from. I don't see Adam at all. That's why I'm wearing the dark glasses, because I don't see his position at all. I think he's like way in left field, or he's somewhere in outer space, and that's kind of where it is.
Okay. Fernando, you, Jeff, and then Adam. I believe it or not, because I'm going to be coming to you, Fernando. Please.
One of the decisions that Adam hates is a Falwell case, and that's fine. And what he leaves out of that is that Jerry Falwell was a public figure, and as a public figure, who at the time was beating down on Hustler and calling it crap and saying it was horrible, this, that, and the other. That's what brought on the cartoon. So they retaliated to him. Once you're a public figure, in all honesty, pretty much all bets are off. The other thing, we talk about that there are Holocaust deniers. A lot of that comes out of the fact that a lot of these school boards have trimmed down the curriculum and taken certain things out of the history books that lead to this thought that the Holocaust never existed. So, part of what you want is already out there, and that's why it's leading to these areas of deficient thought and not being able to think things through. We have a right to say what we need to say, whether people like it or not, as long as that speech, as Guidry says, isn't bringing about imminent danger and inciting a riot right away. I can say it. You know, Jeff's example of building a nuclear bomb, guess what? Some tells me that's going to be curtailed because that is imminent danger.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Jeff, and then Adam, I'm coming to you. Jeff, please. Hang on, buddy.
Enough, I agree with almost everything Fernando has said on this program, and I don't know that that's ever been true before. I even agree with a lot of what Guidry's been saying, which, it makes me doubt myself.
What's going on around here?
But I tell you, I tell you, we are a country that is based on free speech, and I agree with the example that Fernando just gave about Jerry Falwell. And you know what? Jerry Falwell is enough of a public figure that when somebody is castigating him, retaliating against his speech, against their publication by publishing an obviously satirical picture of him, he's going to use that to come out and say, see, I told you, look how depraved these people are. It's going to contribute to the public debate. Now, do I like the fact that Hustler published that? Well, I don't read the Hustler. I never have. And I don't agree with much of what they have to say. But I would die for their right to say it because it is a message. And my remedy for the stuff I disagree with in Hustler is to do things like come on this program and speak out against it. It's not to try to suppress them and say, well, I find what you're saying offensive, so it needs to be shut down.
No, and thank you, Jeff. And Adam, I could not have set you up.
Your fan club, Jeff.
I so dig you. Adam, I could not have set you up better than what Jeff just did, because Jeff is going to defend your right to say whatever it is you want. And right now, you have the floor, young man. Please.
Imagine if you date somebody for 6 months, you break up, your partner is disgruntled, releases photos of you naked on the internet and photos of the two of you having oral sex and sexual intercourse. In my view, the First Amendment does not protect that. It doesn't protect depictions of children getting mutilated. It doesn't protect depictions of kittens getting mutilated. It doesn't protect garbage. It does not protect stuff. It doesn't protect depictions of you having sex with your mother in an outhouse. There is no value in it. It doesn't contribute to the marketplace of ideas. And the woman who sees her naked pictures on the internet can't combat that with more speech. She's damaged.
Okay.
And there is a narrow category. So I disagree with all of you, and I think it was a great discussion, and thank you.
Well, no, and thank you. Who wants to land this today's show? Nick, do you, or Guidry, do you? I don't know what to say because
Me? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everybody.
You look like the thought police, Nick, with those glasses.
I am, and I would like to thank everybody for coming to the Lawyer's Den today, and a great discussion on the First Amendment rights that we have here in the United States. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, another great discussion on Lawyer's Den. But thank you all for coming from the United States of America, the Lawyer's Den. And Guidry goes, let's go look at something that took place 40 years ago. Who cares? Okay, that's political.